When we come out of a psychedelic journey, we are left in a highly neuroplastic state. This is backed up by scientific research. This is a fact that psychedelics increase this neuroplasticity for a window of time. And the second thing we notice is that when we come out in this open space, in this open state of mind, we recognize that we're closing down again. And this is why integration is so important. So in this video, I want to share a simple two-step integration framework that we can apply when we come out of psychedelic journeys to actually take something from our psychedelic journeys and transform our lives with that. Hey, I'm Virgo and this is Psychedelic Integration Actualization. We talk about psychedelic integration a lot here on this channel, and if you're curious about a guide I wrote, there's a guide, it's for free, it's called the 5 Steps to Embody Your Psychedelic Insights in Daily Life. You can download it for free, link is in the video description. So let me start with the story. Just earlier last year, I had quite a few 5-MeO DMT journeys. I was playing around with low to high dose 5-MeO DMT, and there was a period where I was doing a week-long 5-MeO DMT experiment. Just like taking 5-MeO DMT for every single day with slowly increasing dosages from low to medium to high. And towards the end, I was in such an open and vulnerable state. And I was having these deep realizations, and I was crying and breaking down into just this beauty of the realization that I want to surrender more, that I want to let go of control more, that I want to trust in life more and in my path, that I want to go slow, and that I want to follow my highest excitement. And I really felt these realizations to the core of my being. And for a short period of time after these journeys, I was acting on it. I was in it, and people around me recognized, and they said wow, Virgo, man, you're doing it. I can feel the shift in your energy. And I was like, yes, man, this is great. And then slowly after the days and weeks went by, I noticed these old patterns creeping back in and my old habits coming back. And I found myself in a less satisfied state, less happy state of being, less aligned state of being. Again, more in control, more in my ego. And the question is always, how? How do we integrate that state? And this is exactly what I want to talk about, because so many people I talk to as well, and so many coaching clients of mine, they have these highs, they have these peak experiences, they're like, now I will never go back to how I was before. And then with this window of neuroplasticity, this window of opportunity closes down, and we haven't fully properly integrated our experiences, we come down into the valley again. And then to deal with that is even a challenge in and of itself that I notice and see in many clients of mine. So what is the two-step framework that we're going to go into? There's obviously so many frameworks, infinite ones of integration. As I like to say, as psychedelic integration is nothing else but life itself. Our whole life is basically the integration of our experiences. But there's 2 phases that we could go into. One is to pay attention to what's happening when we come out of a psychedelic journey. And 2 is to set new dimensions of containment, new dimensions of discipline, right? So one aspect is related to this key thing of awareness, and the other one is related to this key phase of action. All right? So when we come out, as I said, we feel so light, we feel so open, and the best thing that we can do when we come out of a psychedelic journey, even in the moment we're transitioning out of the psychedelic space and psychedelic state into our ordinary state, we can be an intensely curious observer. Our job is to be aware and to observe what's happening and how quickly this shift is happening, how quickly we're changing from this open state to a more contracted or closed state, how quickly our habit patterns in the minutes, days, weeks afterwards are creeping back in. Even though we said we're never gonna, eat a piece of cake again because it doesn't feel right. After a couple days, we're back in it again. And even the habits of the mind are even more important. We're like, I'm gonna be more compassionate to myself. And then a couple weeks after, we're like, this harsh self-criticism is back. So when we just observe that and see that as a first integration step that allows us to set new containment of discipline and new dimensions of containment for our experience and for our consciousness. So we're just like seeing how it is, how it's happening, that when we're coming out of a psychedelic journey, we are so quickly reshaped, reformulated by our habit patterns. It's just happening. The thing is, we're not resisting it. There's a couple of key characteristics that can hold this container of this two-step framework, which I'll weave in here and there. And one is not to judge that happening, because that's fully natural that that's happening, right? We're not trying to hold on or grasp that state, because when we try to hold on to that state, we're already in suffering, because we lose something that we want to have, right? And we're not satisfied with what is happening and what's here right now. So our job is just to observe. Just be curious and observe how that's happening and be like, wow, now I feel very contracted again. This defense mechanism is coming in again. These plates of armor are being built up again because I feel there's danger out in the world, or I feel my environment is not appreciating the vulnerable state that I'm in. So we build up this armor, we build up our defense mechanisms, we fall into habit patterns of mind and of body, and we just pay attention to that, to how that's happening. That's a powerful integration step, right? And to do that without the judgment, to go very slow and to be insanely curious, right? And not to grasp, not to hold on to that state. And then also, we're paying exquisite attention to how we're feeling in that process, right? Not wishing for the bliss to hold on, but just to see and feel what's present right now. How does it feel to transition out of a psychedelic, ecstatic, or terrifying experience into ordinary state consciousness? How does it feel to be so open, and how does it feel to be a bit more contracted in certain situations? We're just paying very close attention to that. And then also another dimension is we can pay very close attention to our body. Not just on the emotional side, but on the somatic experiencing. Maybe we've had a big release after the psychedelic journey and we feel very relaxed. And then we build up this tension again and we tense up and we feel the contraction in our body. And we're paying attention to that. How is our body contracting? How are we defending on the physical? Right? We can even take that to the mental. How are we in a very open-minded space after a psychedelic journey, and how do we fall into closed-mindedness again? Right? We're feeling the assault of karma, of our habit patterns, of these samskaras that are pulling us back in, that are naturally arising as we transition out of a peak experience. Right? That's a powerful step, just to recognize that. To recognize the somatic, the cognitive, and the emotional contraction that's happening. Without judging it, without holding on to the other space. And then the second part that we can go into is to set new dimensions of discipline. To set new dimensions of containment for our experience. So that means we're integrating. We're taking action. We're reflecting upon our experience and we say, what are the fundamental principles that we can take that the trip showed us? For example, just to appreciate a little bit of cacao, to appreciate what we're drinking or what we're eating, to be open, to be kind, to be compassionate, to be aware, right? And then our job is just to do our best to sustain that, right? To open our containment, our dimension of containment a little bit, to hold that quality that we experience, that we feel like is most important to integrate. And what can really help here in that process is, again, not judging ourselves for not being able to do it, and to go very slow, to be a bit more still and silent and spacious in our integration, especially in the moments and the days and the weeks after a big psychedelic experience. Not to jump back in again into our work or into crazy stuff and, just like be in the full-on day-to-day again, but to take it slow, and also mentally just take it a bit slower and then see how can we contain that quality that we wish to integrate a little bit more. And the second one is to set actions. Based on that experience, we can say, what action steps, what kind of like supportive habits can we cultivate in our day-to-day life that allow us to hold that quality and to integrate that quality that we wish to embody a little bit more. And these, I have found, are honestly a lot of the times very simple things. And many clients of mine also are talking about these very simple things that are helping them to contain their experience. And this is a dimension of discipline, to be able to take 20 minutes out of your day to go for a long walk in nature, or to sit 20 minutes and just do nothing and observe your breathing in the moment, or to sit down at the end of the day and just reflect and journal a little bit about what excited you most, what was draining your energy, where did you feel like you opened and where did you feel like you contracted, or to just drink a little bit of lemon water each morning. In all these dimensions, that's what the workbook I mentioned at the beginning of the video is saying as well, in these dimensions of the physical, of the mental, of the emotional, spiritual and environmental, how can we set new dimensions of discipline? Small little action steps that we feel like are achievable, are doable, are maybe a little bit effortless and true to our heart, true to our insight, true to what the peak experience showed us. And then we just try our best to follow up on that. And if we're not, then we're not judging ourselves again, because that is compassion, by the way, right? And this journey then is never ending, especially on what I call the path of psychedelic actualization, where we're working with peak states and with psychedelic states of consciousness for our self-realization and self-actualization. It's not a one and done, especially for me. It's like it's a continuous process of checking back in again. After a couple of weeks, after a couple of months, maybe a couple of years of a break, I can go into another peak state. I can go in and the psychedelics are always there, welcoming us for another experience, to remember, to recognize, to cultivate that awareness. And then that process starts again, because that window of neuroplasticity starts again. And that's what's so wonderful about it. This journey is never ending. We can go back in and make it a path that we're following, that we're dedicated to, that we're committing to. And potentially even in between our bigger journeys, we could integrate a little practice of microdosing, or of, everything, doing a little bit of something that reminds us of that space. A little breathwork session here and there. A little, what else? Just a silent day of meditation here and there. Or a little bit of rapé here and there. Just to connect to that space again and remember what we want to do in this process of ours. So I hope that was helpful. 2 steps of integration. 1, just be insanely curious and observe, be aware, cultivate that awareness and see, specifically, just see how you're transitioning out of a psychedelic space of a highly neuroplastic state, of a highly open state into a more contracted, closed down state. Just see how these habit patterns and this contraction is coming in again. And then set new dimensions of containment for these qualities that you wish to experience and cultivate, and set new dimensions of discipline to actually follow up on that with your actions. It sounds quite simple, but sometimes it's not easy for none of us, because human life is just an infinite, crazy journey of, ups and downs. And man, okay, great. If you feel like that was helpful and you feel like inspired to get some support on your journey of psychedelic integration, maybe you've had just a psychedelic journey and you came out of it, maybe you've had some in the past and you want to integrate some of those insights or get back on the track, feel free to reach out. I do offer one-on-one integration coaching. There's a link in the video description. And otherwise, watch this video next, because that's a fantastic, long, deep 3-hour masterclass on the ups and downs of psychedelics. It's called Psychedelics Are Not a Magic Pill.